I'm going to talk today about something. Lately it seems as though we've got a crowd of people that have absolutely no understanding, no clue what this rifle shop's about, what I do as a gun maker. From the very, very beginning, before I even went to gunsmithing school, I was very accuracy minded. The very, very first rifles that I built before I went to gun making school shot extremely accurately with my developed hand loads for these rifles. And from that point forward, and especially after I went to gun making school in Trinidad, Colorado, which by the way was thought of by P.O. Ackley, known the world over as the gunsmith's gunsmith, the man to talk to about gunsmithing, the man that worked for him that was the head instructor at Trinidad when I was there, was a wonderful guy by the name of Bill Prater. Bill Prater, everybody enjoyed him, got along with him very well, and we had several other instructors. And so during the few years that I was at gunsmithing school, I refined a lot of my ideas and skills in one thing and another. And over an entire lifetime of about 59 years of building rifles at this point now, I read virtually everything that I could get my hands on. I studied a lot of things. I have quite a decent library of information. I have an entire lifetime collection of the American Rifleman magazine with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of articles in there, plus many other magazines that have been in print over my lifetime and before my lifetime. So I've had at my fingertips, a source of information. As a rule, I don't have to go to any of this information anymore, but to refresh a few things from time to time. Occasionally, I delve into something because there's a question in my mind, whatever might happen to be about what I'm doing at the time. But this shop has always been, from the very conception, an accuracy shop. Now, I built top accuracy hunting rifles my entire career of building rifles. I built long-range hunting rifles and build long-range hunting rifles. I have built rifles, many rifles over the years for bench rest competition. I have built 1,000-yard rifles. I have built rifles to shoot a mile and further, capable rifles, not somebody's pipe dream, but capable rifles to shoot that far. Having built rifles from 17 caliber to 50 BMG and shot all these rifles over a lifetime, I have a collection of targets that anybody would probably envy, to be able to see the thousands of group shot with the rifles that I've built. And in some of my previous videos, I've touched on areas of how to set a barrel up properly to chamber for accuracy. I know exactly, precisely every time what I'm doing, and I repeat it all the time, and I barreled many actions, tens and tens of thousands of barrels I put on actions. I know how to properly barrel an action for accuracy. I have groups, collected groups, anywhere from 15 thousandths size groups at 100 yards. The groups up around the half-inch neighborhood, depending. I have groups, target groups here that I've shot with rifles at, for instance, 500 yards that measured 510 thousandths. I have built rifles for roughly over 39 years for a particular individual, and continue to build a rifle from time to time for this individual, amounting to several dozen rifles over time. Probably the most capable shooter of anybody that I've ever built a rifle for. In a conversation a few days ago, visiting with him, he had just been out to a place where he goes to shoot, and they've got a target range, and he shot at 540 yards, a 270 Weatherby that I built for him last year. Extremely accurate rifle that I worked up loads for, shot 4 different bullets. All the groups were between 3/10 of an inch and under 4/10 of an inch at 100 yards. This individual this past week shot a group at 540 yards with that 9-pound 270 rifle with a 12 power scope on it, Leopold scope. That group measures 1.5 inches at 540 yards. Now, it should be very obvious to most people that I evidently know how the hell to build an accurate rifle. I know how to build an accurate rifle every time. It isn't happen chance. I use barrels that have been proven to me over 40 some odd years to be the very most accurate barrels that I can use. Occasionally I have somebody want some different barrel and so forth, but it may not be the barrel that I recommend, because I know very well that it's not going to shoot as well as what I would suggest or recommend. And I have said in previous videos that I use and recommend Hart rifle barrels, stainless barrels. Why do I recommend that? Because they're the best barrels made by anybody anywhere. Jim and Karen Hart run their business in the family with a crew of people. They don't build bad barrels. You do not get a bad barrel from somebody that knows exactly what their business is. He knows his business making barrels and building rifles just as well as I know my business building rifles and the methods that I use to build these rifles. And quite frankly, a considerable amount of this to do with rifle building is over the top of most people's heads. And I know from conversation of email and or conversation on the phone or in person that many people don't have a clue what they're talking about. And I do. This is an accuracy shop, and you're going to get accuracy. It's plain and simple. Now, many years ago, I shot here in the area here, a shooting range out of Cody, in competition, bench rest competition, light varmint, heavy varmint, and hunter bench rest competition shooting. And when I started shooting there was a particular individual that had a couple rifles that was the only couple of rifles in the whole area that shot extremely well. Well, I built a couple of rifles for myself, and I started shooting these rifles in competition and allowed chosen friends to shoot these rifles in competition. And every time that we did this, we would beat this particular individual or individuals that had these couple of rifles with the rifles that I built. And at a point there was 5 of us shooting these rifles that I had built, and we'd go once a month to, one of these shoots, and there was normally probably 11 or 12 different categories in that shoot, and the prizes were either a ham or a turkey, and of course you had to pay to enter the shoot. Well, the very first time that us fellows went, we took a box with us, so that when a ham was won or a turkey was won, there was a box they could just come over and stick the ham or turkey in the box. And it got to be kind of touchy when we were winning 11 out of 12 categories every damn time that we had one of these shoots. And it ticked people off, and they didn't like it. Well, the fact of the matter is, all they had to do was come to Randy Selby and have me build them a rifle to shoot just like the rifles that we were shooting, because it wasn't a happen chance that I had a rifle that shot. It was a fact that I knew how to build a rifle. Well, one thing led to another, and they threw a meeting, this gun club threw a meeting. They were going to outlaw Randy Selby and the rifles and his friends from shooting in the club because other people didn't have a rifle that shot so well. So I think it should be a pretty damn good clue, that I knew how to build a rifle. Well, we got wind of these shenanigans, and we went to the club. I took a lot of people, rounded up a lot of people, club members, and we put a kibosh on this idea of outlawing my rifles, because these poor whiners, these know-it-alls, we had know-it-alls then, and we've got even more know-it-alls now that seem to think that they know everything. Well, eventually, it all shook out that they realized that Randy Selby, building rifles into the late hours of the evening even, for his customers, shouldn't be deprived of enjoying what he did, the fruits of his labors, or anybody else that had a rifle built by him. This club wasn't set up just for an individual or two that was a leading person in that gun club to shoot only. Everybody had an equal right to be able to shoot, and if you wanted to shoot and be in the winning, then put your money where your mouth was and have a rifle built. It's just plain and simple. And we're right at that point here right now. We've got people, we got individuals that happen to comment, well, you can't use these methods, to build a rifle because it won't be competitive. Like hell it won't be competitive. P.O. Ackley used the very method to build rifles into barrel actions and so forth that I used, and it was a method that was used before P.O. Ackley was born. Method was used before I was born, a method that I'm using and I'm going to continue to use, and other people around the country are going to use and have used for many years. A lathe is built in a certain way. A lathe is built to run things off a center. And it should be very obvious that if you set a barrel up on dead center in a lathe, that everything runs dead true and so forth. And once you put a center in the hole of a rifle barrel, a tailstock center or a headstock center or both in a rifle barrel, the barrel is dead center at each end. Now, there are some barrels that are drilled and reamed and rifled that are probably straight within 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch. There's some barrels that are not quite as straight. There may be a few thousandths of run out somewhere along the barrel, but that doesn't mean that the barrel isn't accurate. It's the methods that's used to set this barrel up and the way everything's chambered. And once a barrel is set up on centers, if you take a light cut on the breech end of the barrel and true that barrel OD to the ID, now you've got a journal to run a steady rest on so that you can chamber the barrel and the lathe in a steady rest with a tailstock setter and a lathe dog and or a self-aligning reamer holder to do the job of holding the reamer. And I know all the methods. I know how to set all these things up, and it takes me less than 2 minutes to set a rifle barrel up absolutely true in the lathe and then begin chambering it, because I know exactly what I'm doing. It doesn't take me 45 minutes of monkeying around like some of these people think that they're trying to impress somebody by using an indicator or something when they don't know how to use a lathe in the first place. A lathe is made to be used off of centers. The reamer that makes the chamber in the barrel is ground on centers in a tool grinding machine that grinds reamers. Years ago, we didn't have these things that are computerized and one thing and another. Now we've got things that are computerized to be able to grind these reamers to dimension and so forth. Well, it should be pretty obvious to most people. It's quite obvious to some people that they don't have a clue how these things are done or any understanding. They're not machinists, they're not tool and die makers, and they're not gun makers, but they want to come around from time to time and tell everybody else how to do it. It's kind of like Washington, D.C. doesn't have a clue at all what they're doing, but by golly, they're going to tell the whole world how to do it. Well, this doesn't fly. This doesn't fly in this shop. I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't have to be told how to do it. And all actions that I barrel are trued. Everything is properly trued where it can be trued. The bolts, the receivers, and so forth, trued to the thread. The thread's trued and so forth. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I have built rifles for 1,000-yard competition. There's an old man lives a few miles away from us here that I built several 1,000-yard rifles for, and he always won in 1,000-yard. Built a 300 Winchester Magnum for him. Last I knew, he was on his 3rd barrel. I don't think he shoots in long-range competition anymore. He's gotten old and unable to do some of these things. But the man shot, the last I knew, he shot groups in the 1 7/8 area at 1,000 yards with that 300 Winchester Magnum. Well, that wasn't a happen chance, folks. That was a matter that he had a properly built rifle, and he knew how to reload for it. He knew what he had to do, and he was a capable and able shooter under competition conditions. It's plain and damn simple. Right now, one of the hottest things going is this 6mm GT cartridge. That's a cartridge that's designed, you know, for competition. They're doing very, very well with it at various different ranges with select bullets, select powders, and one thing another, the capable shooters. Actually, this design of this cartridge, the size of the cartridge, the capacity of the cartridge, goes back right at 39 years ago. How do I know that? Because I designed and built the cartridge. It's called a 6.5 by 45 millimeter long Hunter bench rest cartridge, made to the maximum capacity case allowed for shooting hunter bench rest competition. Well, lo and behold here, this 6mm GT stands for George and Tom, George Gardner of GA Precision builds rifles, and they shoot this 6mm GT in competition. This is one of the hottest things going. Here just lately, there was a program put on by the NRA, and the host of it is Jim Scouten. NRA shooting the USA, you see, in competition shooting. And this will blow your mind, folks. That cartridge that I came up with, that's being used now with heavy bullets, 105 to 110 grain weight bullets, is being used in competition. Yeah, there's another cartridge or two that's almost like it, but it doesn't have quite the capacity. This is the better cartridge. There's actually, in the competition that was held here just not so long ago, there were 400 shooters, and the greatest share of these people were shooting the 6mm GT cartridge with a tight twist barrel, somewhere between a 7.5, and 7.7 inch twist with those weight bullets, shooting various powders. One of the handiest and best powders is the Winchester 6.5 stay ball powder, using Federal 205 match primers because it's got a small primer pocket. And by the way, the cartridge that I designed had a small primer pocket. Back then, Remington sold 308 BR cases. BR stands for bench rest, and I formed those cases in several form dies from 308 down to 6mm, shorten the case up. You can hold them side by side, my 6x45 and the 6mm GT, and you can't see any evidential difference in the cases. There's 5 degrees difference in the shoulder angle of the case. Everything else about the case is all pretty much the same. And anyway, these are how these things have come about. Well, in that competition of 400 shooters, they narrowed it down. They narrowed it down to do with score and one thing another, down to 17 shooters. Now those 17 shooters in the end shoot off, they all shot against one another, and it was finally down to a couple of guys, and it ended up the one individual out of 400 shooters won the competition. You can go and look up, this situation and what all is required for a rifle and so forth. I'm not going to go into that detail, but the fact of the matter is, this man was shooting 10 rounds at every position that is dictated that they use to shoot under competition, from prone to sitting to bench to so on and so forth. And this man shot the first time ever in any world record competition an absolute 100% perfect score. You understand? Now, I have the ability, I have the gun making know-how, the expertise to build one of those rifles. That guy was a shooting machine, and he knew how to use his rifle. Just a young guy around 30-some years old. There was a guy that was competing against him. I think there was only about 18 years old, and he was really doing extremely well too. But I'm pointing these things out because I know what I'm talking about. And I know how to build these rifles. I've built many of these sort of things. I'm working on a 6mm GT as we're talking, and in the midst of this build, waiting for another part or two to finally come in, and the components to come in to finish the rifle and test this rifle. But anyway, it'll be another extremely accurate rifle built for competition. I have one of the very first bench rest competition rifles that I ever built for myself. I have that rifle, and that rifle, I shot groups that are down there around 75 to 87 thousandths groups. 5-shot groups at 100 yards. I shot one group of that rifle in testing, not in competition, but in actual individual testing myself, that measured 1/4 of an inch for 10 shots with a particular bullet that was made then, a bench rest style bullet, and so forth. And anyway, I wanted to pretty much clear the air here and explain to you, I'm not just some guy out here just putting together a rifle. I know what I'm doing. I'm one of the oldest gunsmiths that's been building rifles for almost his entire lifetime, from the time he was 14 years old. I've been building rifles for a lot of years, folks. Lots and lots of years, 59 years. So, over that length of time, and many years ago, I was doing it just like I'm doing it here today. And this is what I enjoy, this is what I like to do. I'm an expert at what I do, and I think it's been very necessary to point out what I do here in this shop and what I don't do. And it isn't up to anybody else to question how I do it or whatnot. My rifles prove themselves. If you want an accurate rifle, a hunting rifle, a bench rest type of a rifle, a varmint rifle, a long range target type rifle, whatever, this is the shop to come to, because I know how to do all these things. I don't build just one particular rifle, and you don't have any other choices. There are a lot of choices, bases to cover when you come to Randy Selby to build a rifle, because I do it all, because that's what I know. I don't know how much more that I can explain this to you to make it abundantly clear, but this is what it's about. Yeah, there's other folks out here building rifles, but I build just as accurate or perhaps a more accurate rifle, and I don't know of anybody that has the hand loading experience with hundreds upon hundreds of cartridges over an entire lifetime that I do, and I do it every day.